Deborah, with her 30 years of being an entrepreneur and creating over 7 companies, knows exactly what it means to accept the mission. When you make that decision, when you accept the mission to become a solopreneur, to take yourself and your talents to market, then you embrace a life of not only unlimited possibilities, but also the unknown. It's an elixir of fear and bravery that only someone who's taken the leap really understands. On our show, Deb digs deep with her guests to highlight what you, the listener, wants to know. The stories, the whys, and the hows to navigate the journey to success. Get ready to hear from some of the most incredible mission takers from Generation Z to Boomers. So sit up, perk up, and get ready to be blown away. Now here is your host, Deborah Drummond.
Hello and welcome back to Mission Accepted Podcast, the place that if you're an entrepreneur, you're like taking copious notes. And if you're not, you're just here for the fun of it. We will allow you to enjoy these laughs and giggles on our behalf because being an entrepreneur is everything fun and everything funky. And we're just going to leave it there. So look, you guys know that I'm super grateful. You send this show out. You are the most active, best podcast audience ever. And today, you're so good. I know I can hear you. You're like, oh, what are you going to call us today, Deb? You're so good. I just want to call you my celebrity podcast listeners. Can we say that today? Can we say you are all celebrities today? And oh, let me see. We just happen to have an award-winning a TV film producer, strategist who has just, when I tell you what this woman has done for events, what she has done for the entertainment industry, what she has done for charities, for profits, for nonprofits. Honestly, you just want to be your kid and wonder what the birthday parties turn out to be because this woman absolutely rocks it and shocks everybody and has an incredible reputation in the world of entertainment, politics, and royalty for putting on the most incredible produced celebrity events. And so you get to be celebrities today. So Lainie Strouse, please welcome to Mission Accepted Podcast. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Wow, with that kind of intro, I better deliver. Oh my goodness. I apologize in advance to everyone if it doesn't live up to the hype. Oh my. I have to introduce me for everything from now on. Like that's a requirement. That's going to be in my writer. Deb has to come along.
I have a funny feeling you're used to delivering. I don't know, but we'll dig into that a little bit, right? We'll dig into that a little bit. So look, I know your story. Not everybody knows your story, but I think one of the things that makes you as good at what you do is you have a really beautiful understanding of humans, right? The behavior of humans. And I think in the business that you do, you've had to navigate many different ways in relationship to communication, but also personality styles. And I think one of the things that I love about your story the most is that willingness to say yes. And we talked about that a little bit pre-show about how you ended up in New York with $200 or something like that. Maybe you want to share a little bit, because when people see you and, when they hear the events that you do, I mean, wow, right? They don't probably ever see Lainie Strouse at a place where there was crossroads in her life going, I got $200. What am I going to spend that on today?
Well, I mean, newsflash, the early aughts of my life were a bit of a train wreck, to be honest. So, I think part of what, I don't want to bore everyone with my whole origin story. This isn't like a Marvel movie, but, essentially, my father was in a horrible car accident when I was pretty young. And so I'd had this sort of middle class, comfortable life, or so I thought. And then because my dad was an entrepreneur in himself, he was an inventor, he had his own business, he was unable to work. So we lost everything. So from a very early age, I had to work and I learned for good or for better for worse that, I had to rely on myself to make sure I was okay. And that has served me well over the years. My parents were loving, quality human beings, but that's not something you kind of count on or predict. So ultimately I put myself through school. I went to University of Miami. And then after that, I moved to New York. I had been born in New York, but my family had moved. So yeah, I moved back. Everyone thought I'd be there for like 4 days and 4 years later, But yeah, I mean, I had a couple $100, and anyone who's ever been to New York, or even if you haven't, I think you know that that's not gonna, that'll probably buy you lunch at most of the restaurants there. So, well, this was a few years back, but yeah, I mean, I literally had like, I don't even like it, but I would eat like cottage cheese and like cantaloupe. Like I mean, it was pretty sad. And I was living in a I had a sublet that I was doing for literally, it was supposed to be, month, and I would thought I could find something to live there. Little did I know, when you move in August, that's when all the students come and take up all the housing. So note to anyone out there, if you're moving to New York and you're looking for affordable housing, don't go in August. So if you get nothing else out of this conversation,
That's
there you
it.
go.
And that cottage cheese and cantaloupe can be good, just not as your meal every day, all day. So
No, that's when you're desperate and you're trying to scratch a couple bucks for several days and you're slicing it, and I don't recommend it. Not delicious, but it was functional. Just trying to stay alive. But yeah, within 2 weeks, I mean, I started literally walking the pavement. I was taking the Village Voice circling jobs. Like I literally got in an elevator. I was dressed in middle suit going to an interview, and a guy in the elevator is like, "Oh, are you going up for the job interview?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "What do you do?" I said, "What do you got?" I mean, that's where I was. So just so you understand, this is not some glamorous like experience. So yeah, I started literally typing textbooks and doing page layout in textbooks, like just for a few $100 a month, like a week. That was not, this is not some glamorous life that I was leading here. And just and another note, if you go in the summer in the subway, going to a job interview, you come out looking like you've been wrung through the washer machine. So very hard to look cute when it was like 1,000 degrees and steam rising and you're in your little suit, like, oh my God, trying to get a job interview. Not cute. So
not cute. Well, I mean, I think that's the part that makes you so good with human behavior and communications. And let's talk a little bit about that. So everyone's like, oh, actors, singers, authors, producers, they all had their break. And sometimes that's not the case for people. It wasn't that one person that walked into the elevator. We were all like, was that the person that walked in the elevator? Was that Steven Spielberg? No, some guy was going to give you a job for a couple $100. But for you, was it more you had a break, you did a gig, someone introduced you, or was it the little bit chipping away? What's your story there? How did you get to be where you are?
Wherever that is.
Yeah. Where are you?
I mean, it's definitely been a journey. I've had lots of kind of breaks throughout my life. I mean, there hasn't been like, it wasn't like I was 3 years old saying, I'm going to produce events and movies. And like, this wasn't something that necessarily had been my dream as a child. But what happened was, over the years, I mean, I started out in front of the camera. I started just literally one of those happy accidents. I went to the Fashion Institute in Miami for a summer program when I was 13 years old. And we went on a field trip to Michelle Pommier, who used to represent Christy Turlington and a lot of other models. And I went in there for a field trip, and they followed me out and offered to represent me and wanted to have me do that. And I was a child. I had no understanding of what that was. And my parents were not from the entertainment industry. So I started doing just that kind of stuff. I mean, initially, and I'm not 5'10", so it was more, editorial stuff. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was fun to do that. But even then, even as a child, I knew that was temporary. I did not see that as something I would be doing as a 50-year-old woman or a 40-year-old woman. It was like, okay, this is cool for now. What am I going to do with my life? So I put myself through school. I did get a scholarship to UM, which is why I went there. And I worked my whole way through. I mean, everything from sewing costumes in the theater department for a student job, to working at clubs and restaurants at night and going to class first thing in the morning. There wasn't a lot of sleep happening. But yeah, I had no choice but to hustle. It was either like move or fall down. So that was kind of something I had to learn as you figure it out. And I do believe if you are hardworking, you work in integrity, you do everything the right way as best you can with the best intentions, things have progressively worked out. Doesn't mean there's not ups and downs, but you know, I work consistently. I mean, did everything. I danced flamenco at the Fairmont on South Beach and sat people at their tables. I mean, you name it. I mean, seriously, it's not, I'm not exaggerating when I say, I mean, I did music videos for Latin artists. I was doing salsa dance. I mean, like, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Like if you say, and the fun part is I never think that learning something is bad. So even if it's not something I use all the time, you know, I'm able to it served me over the years. And you never know what you're going to have to do. When you're a producer, I've had to, you know, someone didn't show up and we went long and we had to come up with dinner. I literally ran as fast as I could to the nearest grocery store and just started buying those pre-made rotisserie chickens and like stuff at the deli counter. And some people are vegetarians and salads and bread. And I'm like sitting there with a bad knife, hacking it into pieces and making it look pretty on a tray. And I'm like, okay, dinner. Like nobody knew. I'm like, close the door. I had to like, I mean, when you're, you know, there is things that you just have to make work. And so one of the skills that I think over all this is I've had to develop is problem solving, you know, making the best out of a situation, keeping a calm head, you know, putting fires out. And as you mentioned, understanding personalities, but also taking my own ego out of it and focusing on what is the solution. So if somebody else loses their temper or if somebody else is angry and they get in my face and start yelling at me, I have learned to not take it personally because almost always it's not about me. It's about whatever's going on for them in that moment. And it's not about being reactionary. It's about being focused on what the solution is and okay, this happened. What can I do for you to make it better? How do we fix this? And be solution oriented. Because it's very easy to get defensive, to attack back if someone's attacking you. So a big part of it is really about learning to take your own ego out of the situation and focus on solutions. And you can address it later, you know, and debrief. And if there's things you need to learn from and do better in the future, obviously there's always lessons to be learned, even if it's just to think of that for the next time, because sometimes you can't know and you don't have control over weather, you don't have control over COVID, you don't have control over all these things. So, you know, but if you can think 3 steps ahead and go, okay, if this happens, this is my backup plan. If this happens, this is my backup plan. And, you know, sometimes you just have to react on the surface and do the best you can in that moment. And you can't dwell on it. It's not about pointing fingers and yelling at someone else or taking your frustrations out. It's really about removing the emotion and the ego and addressing whatever's happening as quickly and calmly as you can. And that will serve you, I think, in every industry. Because whether it's your boss, whether it's a client, whether it's your mom, you know, someone's upset with you.
Let's get real. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it serves you in every instance to really take a pause and take a moment and hear what the person's saying, not just how they're saying it. And really look at the root. I'm very big on looking at roots of problems. And I think that's something that's missing from politics, from, you know, conversations about issues in our social system, in our education. Everyone wants to just complain about what's wrong with something. I really like to delve in and look at roots. Like, why is this happening? What, you know, because that's the only way you can really resolve something. It's like, if you have a disease and it gives you headaches and you just take an aspirin for the headache, you might get rid of the headache temporarily, but you're not resolving the root of the cause of the issue. So that's how I kind of look at everything, whether it's an event, whether it's funding for a project, whether it's working with people. It's like, okay, I hear you. Like, why is this happening? What happened? What can we do about it? And just moving on from there. And then that has really served me because people get heated in a moment. And because there's a frustration or, you know, people want things to be perfect. People want things to be the best. And sometimes you just have to go, okay, this is the best it is for now. You can't, you can't focus on
it. Well, we talked about that. And it's, you know, I think what some people see and some people experience are very different. And
yes,
the nervousness around what is etiquette, what is not. I mean, you've dealt with everyone from actors and actresses. And I think if you've been on the planet a little while, there's people, they know like, oh, these directors are a little kind of funky. These actresses a little funky, or there's some demands that they have, right, wrong, or good or bad. It doesn't really matter. These things that you have to accommodate with. So just because someone has needs doesn't mean that they're, you know, difficult. It just means like, hey, maybe they don't like carrots. You know what I mean? So there's carrots in their salad, so please fix it. It doesn't have to be demanding. But you're talking about different countries you work with,
Yeah.
royalty in different countries. There's different culture, there's different rules, politics, what side of the game, what are politicians. Did you learn that on the spot? Like, how did you become so versed? Or was it like, yeah, I'll take that project on and then I'm going to start researching how to shake that hand properly in that country? Like, tell us.
Yeah, it's all of that. I mean, some of it is just, what I've learned to do with people is do a lot of listening and just come from a respectful place. But yes, obviously, if you're dealing with, there's a lot of rules and regulations around if you're dealing with certain level or obviously royalty, there's each country or each, even just going to countries, whether it's the Middle East or you're going to Dubai and, I will research, and I'll ask. I don't pretend to know everything. And if whoever I'm dealing with over there, I will ask, I will say, is there anything that I want to be respectful? Is there anything I need to know or anything that I should know? Whether it's, in England, you're not supposed to touch the royal family unless they initiate it. In other places, they want you to have your shoulders covered, or they may want you to have your head covered, or maybe you need to wear things to the knee. So always erring on the side of respect is, will always serve you well when you're in those circumstances. But I do ask. I honestly do. I don't pretend to know everything, and not everything on the internet is accurate either. So while you can Google stuff, you'll see conflicting information. So I always like to actually go and ask whoever they usually have someone who's managing their schedule and who you're dealing with. So I do ask, I say, I really would like to be respectful. Please let me know if there's any behaviors, if I'm supposed to speak to them in a certain way, call them a certain something. If am I supposed to bow? Am I supposed to, are they supposed to shake hands? And sometimes they'll say, oh, forget the formalities. Just talk to me, talk to me like I'm your friend. But I always let them initiate that. I never make assumptions. And a lot of people, I think the reason why some Americans unfortunately get a bad rap, and it's not all Americans, obviously, is, sometimes we're unwittingly going into a situation where culturally people are different. And it's not intentional, but they just, someone goes there and they just don't know, and they do what they're comfortable with in their home country or their home state, and they don't realize that that can be offensive in another country. So I do think, just if you want to be respectful, do look into it when you're dealing with other cultures, whoever it is, because even in certain, if you're just going to a family home, I mean, certain things in Japan and removing your shoes, or do you bow, or where do you sit, or how do you sit, or, how do I refer to somebody? There's, respectful words that you want to use. And I think if you're coming from a place of wanting to be respectful, whether you're dealing with royalty or you're dealing with just a family from another country, every culture has their sort of do's and don'ts and things that you wouldn't even think of necessarily to ask. So that's why I just ask generally, is there anything I should know? Like, please tell me. And sometimes they forget to tell you stuff anyway. But, again, if you're coming from a respectful place, you can, and you do make a faux pas, you can say, oh, I do apologize. I was unaware, or something like that. But, obviously, if you educate yourself better, you can avoid, hopefully, the most egregious things. So, yeah.
Well, maybe, so I'm sure the question that people ask more often than not are, so what are some of the events that you've produced? I know that you can't share all of them because you have, privacy issues, but what are some of the events that you've done? And has there been any events that you've done something that's just really cool, like some really cool things that either they wanted or you created in your own mind? And yeah, share some fun. We got fun and funky in this show.
Definitely funky.
Yeah.
Well, every event, see, this is the thing that I always like to say to people, because they'll say to me like, oh, how did you do this? Or how did you do that? And people want to do, oh, do we do a black tie event? Or do we do a casual event? Or do we do a cocktail event? And I always start from, who are you inviting? What is the result of this event? What does success look like to you? What are you trying? What kind of thing are you envisioning? If some people have a big vision of what they want it to look like. So that's what I want to hear first. But also, who are you inviting? And it's funny because most people forget that. It's like they kind of go, oh, I want to do a black tie, or I want to do this club thing, or I want to do a concert, or whatever it is. But I like to work from that place because we're creating an experience for the guests. And I want to make sure whoever is coming, that it's going to appeal to as many of those people as possible. Obviously, there's always somebody who can complain, right? But if I'm going to have a lot of people who've seen and done everything, it's funny because people are like, oh, it's so cool, you have these famous people in the room. And I'm like, for me, my perspective is, oh my God, how am I going to make these people happy? Like, what can I do that will be unique and special that they haven't already seen? I mean, I did the Ellen DeGeneres Ellen Fund event, and it is Leonardo DiCaprio in the room, and Sofia Vergara, and Jennifer Aniston, and Ted Sarandos, who heads up Netflix, and every head of every studio, and every people top in their field all over the country, and people fly in, and so how do I make that special for somebody like that? So that's to me is more of a struggle than yes, of course, it's wonderful to have those people in the room, and I'm always privileged and honored to be able to do things for anyone, but it's definitely a
Mhm.
little bit harrowing to think, okay, what can I do that's going to appeal to this group that's special? And Ellen was hosting it. James Corden and Ellen did the live auction. We had Bruno Mars and Chris Martin performing, and in talking about funky, Miley Cyrus was supposed to perform, and she got tonsillitis like 2 days before and wasn't able to do it. And Chris Martin was actually a guest, and he agreed to do it, and he had already donated. He'd bought a table, and so we tried to give him the money back because he was going to perform for us, and he let us keep it. So Chris Martin actually gave us money to perform at our event. So God bless him. He's a lovely human being. But those are things that are like, oh my God, this person is actually paying us to be able to perform. But he was great and easy to work with, and obviously a pro, and Bruno Mars live is fantastic. So obviously that brings an element to it that is amazing already for guests, because that's something beautiful. But we were doing it for endangered species, and the first year we wanted to focus on mountain gorillas who were up near extinction, and at one point they went down to like 25 in the world. And Ellen had a very close relationship, and I can say this, normally I don't talk about things, but she's talked about it on her show, so I just give you top line stuff. This isn't but she was a fan of Diane Fossey, and Portia de Rossi gave her this foundation for her 60th birthday as a gift. Think about trying to buy something for someone who has everything. So, so God bless Portia for doing that. That was a very sweet idea. So in this, she wanted to save endangered species, and she started with this mountain gorilla. And so to me, I'm going, okay, because when I'm working on a nonprofit or a cause related thing, I want people to leave with more knowledge than they walked in with, right? But I don't want to be boring, and
Mhm.
you don't want to hit people over the head, and you don't want to make people feel like they're taking a class, but you want people to understand, why should I care about this topic? I mean, there's so many great causes. So I said, okay, how can we possibly make people care about a mountain gorilla in Rwanda, and why should they care over cancer and all these other things, right? So I said, wouldn't it be great if I could bring a gorilla to the Palladium? But I went, okay, that's probably not a good idea. So how else do we do this? So I said, can we create a VR experience so that people can kind of get that feeling in a safe environment? We don't get mauled by a gorilla. So, one thing I learned is that it's a forest, not a jungle. It's actually a forest. And we had a beautiful team who went into the forest, set up cameras for 48 hours, and recorded the gorillas and their existence, and all the life and the grasses and the trees and the whole experience, and did a hand stitch VR experience that we had. And I was trying to get it all donated, and this is like behind the scenes stuff, but I was trying to get it donated from these companies, and they couldn't give me, because we had like 450 people, they couldn't give me enough because there was some development conference at the same time, so they were using so I'm trying to like call Oculus and this one and that one, and I'm trying to get it donated because it's for charity. I do my best to get everything donated, and we got some, and they weren't enough for everyone, but we set up a station, and we literally had, and I got a sponsor who paid for it, so it didn't come out of the cause.
Yeah.
So, and then it was so funny because the person who sponsored it was recording people having the experience, and he didn't realize what he was recording. So they had the Oculus on, and and this woman was like, ah, ah, because there's like a gorilla reaching out. So he thinks it's hilarious. So he's videotaping this woman and he didn't realize she pulls it off and it was Julia Roberts. And then he goes, ah, after she, so it was like the most perfect video because she was having the VR experience and Ellen loved it. So she brought it to the show that Monday and was showing it to, she had Nicole Kidman and Margot Robbie and Charlize Theron on they were doing Bombshell at the time. And this is right before COVID. And showed it to the whole audience. So, I mean, it's, that's something, and it's still online now. So it's a pretty cool thing. And to have something tangible, but also that money raised, we raised millions and millions of dollars, raised $5 million. Our goal was $2 million. They took this money, went to Rwanda, created this building, and they taught the locals, they had women for the first time doing construction. And there's beautiful videos of all these women working all the equipment, and they made the most beautiful, sustainable building right next to the Diane Fossey Foundation. And now it's in Rwanda, and you can go and tour it, and it's something tangible that we can say as a team, we all worked really hard to raise this money and, create this amazing event. And it's something that, you can say, okay, now there's over 1,000 of these gorillas, and they're doing naming opportunities. And so it's something you can say, okay, I was a part of this thing that lives on. And it was, right before COVID too, like a few months before COVID hit. So I'm really grateful I had that opportunity to be part of that. And, obviously she has a lovely team and everybody did their jobs. And it was great to have that opportunity to do something that cool. And, with who she is, she obviously attracted a lot of fantastic people to attend.
So, wow. Yeah. That's an incredible story. And just listening to you, you can hear the infrastructure that had to go into play in the background of something like that. But like you said, I mean, I love that because I've heard you say that before about, what is the result of the event? And I think that's such an important piece. It certainly was an eye opener for me when we were having a conversation about Ocean's event. And it was like, because you forget about it. You're so excited, right? You want people to have this amazing experience, and you start to lean into the experience and creating that without having maybe that strong sense of intention. Like, what are they going to walk away and say other than the champagne was fantastic. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Well, this is the thing is there's a difference between, and nothing against anyone who does this, but there's a difference between someone who their job is decor, their job is logistics or to coordinate, and someone who has to produce and think of the end result in the whole thing. So again, everybody, all these people are important. And if you're looking for someone to design your event, that's great. And I can do that. I can bring in other people. I have great teams who do everything. But where I come in is as a producer is, yes, sometimes I will pick all that stuff, but you're perfectly capable of going into a florist and saying, I like this centerpiece. Like, you don't necessarily need me to do that for you. But what I'm here to do is I want to help you get your dream result. What are you really hoping to get out of this? And it's funny because, as you said, people do forget that because it is overwhelming because you're thinking about, I want this show, I want this, I want the fashion, I want the music, I want this. And there are all those elements and they're all very important. But what I want to say is, okay, at the end of it, you're launching him and you want this result. And who do you want in that room ideally? And what do we need to have so that they have this great experience and they give you the result you want? And so that's where the strategy comes in. Mm-hmm. And so that's where, a lot of people like to use the word strategy, and it's important for any job that you have and being effective and working smart rather than just hard. Obviously, we all want to, we all have to work hard at what we do, but there are ways to do it where you're having the most effective result and where to put the money that you do have, because I don't want you to waste money. A lot of people, God bless them, work with people and they have endless budgets and they will throw money at a problem. And my role is to, whatever money you want to spend, that you get the most out of it, that we get you the best that you possibly can, and where we can get things donated so you don't have to pay for it, I'd like to do that. And if that's not possible, making sure the money is going to the things that make the event a better experience. So, yes, I mean, Do I really need a giant, I've gone to some events where they have the most magnificent flowers and they're stunning to look at, and you can't see the stage from your seat.
Right.
And, you know, and you see them hanging and there's these magnificent chandeliers of roses. And I've seen these things for charities and I'm like, my God, I know how much these things cost. Like, I can't believe like this is where they're putting their money. And it does, it looks great. But I've never heard one person go, that event was amazing. That centerpiece really made the event. I mean, have you, you want great food, you want good entertainment and music, or, people really make an event when you can put good people together who are fun, and it's the whole energy of the event. And what is it that you want people to walk away from? If they learn one thing about your organization, your group, your product, or whatever you're doing, what is that thing, that germ of an idea, or what do you want people to know more about when they leave? And how do we get them that information while making it entertaining and fun and positive? Because too often, and I always, and here I beg to people, if you are speaking, although probably right now I'm speaking too long, but normally what I would advise
You're perfect.
advise people is, when you're speaking at an event, short and sweet is better. I know everybody feels like, oh, I have so much to say, but give yourself 2 minutes. And that way, if you run to 2.5, 3 minutes, if you tell people 2 minutes, everybody will thank you. I've never been to an award show where people said, gee, I wish that was longer. Ever. So that's something I give to my clients all the time, because they're like, let's put this in. This is pretty. This is cool. I'm like, do we need this? Is this something that's moving the evening along? Is this something that has to be there? So everything in the event is like telling a story, and it's a piece of art, the way Ocean's art, his clothing, or any artist, any film. And that's why, I also work with film and television. Everything is a story that you're putting together. There's a beginning, middle, and end. You're creating an experience for people. And I think sometimes people forget that. And even if you're telling a sad story in a movie or a documentary, remember, you want to make it palatable for people. So you have to have some relief and some humor in it. And even with the night, you don't want to get so serious. And I obviously, I think you know this, but I worked with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for several years. And obviously there's nothing more sad than a child with any kind of illness, and a terminal illness at that. So when I'm doing galas for them, or I'm doing an event, I have to walk a fine line of making it hopeful. Because if I sit there and I give people the saddest videos that we could put on and they're sobbing, what are they going to do? They're going to go to the bathroom. They're going to want to leave, right? No woman wants to sit there with mascara running down her face at a gala, right? You're at a black tie, you put yourself together and you go there, and we just put on the worst thing and make people cry and leave. So I really would cultivate a more hopeful thing, and I would find things where there were stories of hope and kids getting better, and the work that the great people there do and the positive results from it, not because everything was positive, but I wanted them to understand that their money was going to a cause and there was hope and they're creating a result. Because nobody wants to feel like they have no option or no possibility to improve. And anytime you donate, and this, I think of this for myself as well as guests, even or a sponsor, people want to know, what is my money going to, right? What am I helping to create? How is this going to benefit either my company, my brand, or if they're just coming from pure altruism, where is this money going, and what benefit can it have? So I always work from there, creating packages for people that make them understand the ROI they're going to get, or the result. And even at the events, I want people to know that your $100 pays for this service, or this is what you are going to be able to provide by giving us $5,000. And every organization is different, but I like to create that, because who doesn't want to feel like, oh, I gave $100 and it paid for a week's food for a family in need, or I gave this and it provides X. It gives you a feeling that you can contribute at whatever level you can and have impact.
Wow. So much to digest there. That was incredible. Really, that was incredible. And I think that, like I said, I even went through that exact experience, right? And it's about the intention behind the event, because a lot of times you'll go to a black tie. Oh, when I do an event, I want to do this and I want to do that, but you have to make sure it's right and right for you.
Yes.
I know we're going to wrap up soon, and we're super excited because, of course, If you haven't seen Lainie, you will see Lainie on the 262, and we're going to do an incredible event where she is coming on as the speaker, and we are going to dive even deeper than we did today. And then you'll be able to see her on our streaming channel, and she will be with us a couple of times. So you'll have to pop over to the event page on debdrummond.com, and you can line yourself up to come hear more of Lainie. But, and of course, on Mission Accepted Media, the podcast will be everywhere. But kind of in your final wrap up, whether it's what you're working on now, if you can tell us anything you're working on now, if you want to lead us to anything. As soon as I told Ocean that you did something with Seth, well, you got to know, we're Vancouver, Canada people. It was like, you just went like to here, you know.
Oh,
like,
well, there you go.
He's like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. And then I was like, Seth. And he's like, what? So when I don't even know, I'm not saying the last name because I don't even know if you can say it, but share with us maybe kind of what's going on for you right now, some of the things that you're working on, wrap us up, drive us to learn more about you, and where can we do that?
Yeah, well, you can go to LainieStrouse.com. There's a few little trailers of a few projects I'm working on now. I'm also doing some international events. If I'm allowed to announce them, when I'm allowed to announce them, I'll definitely bring them to you and let you share them with your audience.
Okay.
But yeah, I have a few private events. I work with F Cancer, which is letsfcancer.com, which is a nonprofit that provides free screenings for people who don't have health care so they can find things earlier stage, teach people how to avoid the cancers they can with certain lifestyle choices, and education and lots of positive things there, which is wonderful. And I work with Cameron Boyce Foundation for epilepsy. So we're having an event there coming up later this year as well. So lots of things to come. I'm also doing some international events with the Polo Federation and various people. So it's going to be exciting. Lots of travel coming up and fun stuff. But yeah, I'm scheduling a few movies that are going into production as well. So I'm excited. As soon as I have more details, I will let you know.
Okay, and in the meanwhile, we'll just, our Vancouver, Canada boy, we're so excited to hear that you worked with him. Okay, so that being said, thank you so much. We look forward to our next conversation with you, and thank you so much, listeners and viewers, and do what you do best, and that is to share, ask questions, send in your comments. If you want to be where Lainie's sitting and you want to share your passion or your mission or your vision or whatever it is that you're doing and contributing to the world, you know where to reach me. This is not difficult. It's deb@debdrummond.com. And you all know about the 262 movement because it's gone from an event to a project. I'd say it's actually gone from a project to an event, now to a movement. And we now have this beautiful public page, the 262 media page, where you get to find about all of the authors, all of the speakers, all of the events, because this apparently is not ever going to end. And June 6th, Vancouver, come join us in Vancouver on June 6th. I never timestamp. If you hear about this after June 6th, 2024, well, I'm sure we're going to be doing a live book signing launch somewhere near you, so reach out to us. Thank you, Lainie, for being part of Mission Accepted. Thank you, audience, for doing everything that you always do. And until we see you again, be well.